What's up, everybody? This is Coach Curb, and this is the Sports Report. Hope everyone has had a great week, had a great weekend, ready for episode 2 of the Sports Report. I want to thank everyone right off the top for all of the support, all of the likes and comments I got on my clips in my first week. Having a blast doing this. I look forward to doing many more of these in the future. Let's get right into my first take. My hot take of the night of this show is the NIL transfer portal issue, as promised on my clips this past week. NCAA has got to get a handle on this. They've got to get a handle on the transfer portal and on NIL. Look, this is not about whether I'm for or against the transfer portal or NIL or against athletes getting paid. That's not the issue. The issue is control. The issue is control. And right now, there is no control. There is no control. Okay? When you look at the transfer portal right now, it's basically a free agency in college football, in college sports with no guardrails. The NIL, was supposed to empower the athletes, and it has, but it's also created a system where there's no credibility. Continuity is getting harder to maintain. It's out of control. Here's where I land on it. I've said for years, you ask anybody, I've said for years, players should get some kind of a stipend. Players should get some kind of a pay structure. Yes, they're on full scholarship. Yes, they get money for their scholarship, but they should reap some of the benefits of the amount of money they bring into these universities every year. I fully believe that. But we've gone from one extreme to the other, where they're getting nothing to they're going out and getting contracts for millions and millions of dollars. It's out of control. It's got to be fixed, and it's got to be fixed by the NCAA. I know I've been hard on the NCAA this week, but this is the thing the NCAA needs to focus on instead of the Owen Heineke situation, where a kid's just trying to get another year of playing football. Okay, I've talked enough about that for the week, but I don't want to get off point here. At this point, I don't think you can roll it back. That's not realistic. Players are going to get paid, but they have to put some kind of control on this. The NIL, and the transfer portal. The transfer portal, guys can go in and play a year at one school, transfer. A year at another school, transfer. They can go to 4 different schools in 4 years. That has to change. That is not control. That's free agency. That's beyond free agency. In the NFL, they have to go in and sign a 2, 3, 4 year contract. Make these kids sign contracts. Make them have to stay longer than 1 year at a school. There's no other way around it. Otherwise, you're going to continue to see this. The money is going to keep getting crazy, and it's going to affect college football. I hear people talk all the time, this is going to destroy college football. No, it's not going to destroy college football. College football is not going anywhere. It's going to be around, but it's going to definitely change the landscape of it, not just college football, college basketball, baseball, all college sports at this level. Something has to be done. NCAA has to step in and establish control. Right now, it's just too easy for college sports to turn into constant roster turnover instead of team building. Now, I gave a couple of clips yesterday, regarding college coaches, the pressure that's on college coaches. And as I said, I know coaches make a ton of money. Coaches make a lot of money to do what they do for all the pressure that they're under. Boatloads of money. I understand that. But we're too fast to put everything on them when things go wrong. And again, coaches are the face of it. That comes with the job. They know that going in. But when rosters change year to year, players come and go at the rate that they do right now, It's not the same job that it used to be in this era of NIL and transfer portal. You're not just coaching a team anymore. You're rebuilding parts of it constantly. Look at the OU basketball program, for instance, Porter Moser. You know, I know there's a lot of pressure on him. I like Porter Moser. I think he's a great basketball coach. But he's had to rebuild his team every year he's been there. I think this coming up next year, he's got 4 guys returning. That's the most he's ever had returning, which is a good thing. Which is a good thing. Now, I know that, again, a lot of talk that's on him. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. I'm not a basketball guru, trust me. I'm a football guy. But it's just ridiculous that a coach has to worry about rebuilding his entire roster every single year. So before we just fire off at coaches, we've got to understand what they're actually dealing with. You know, something has to change. Something has to change or it's going to keep getting worse and the money's going to keep getting crazy. You know, kids are going to keep transferring every year. You know, again, make them sign a contract or let them transfer once. You get one freebie. You get one free transfer. After that, we're back to the other. You have to sit out a year before you regain eligibility. That would be my solution right there. I mean, I get it. That's probably not going to happen. I think the 2 or 3 year contract is going to happen before we go back to the old way. They get one free one. After that, they have to sit out. I think those days are gone. And again, NIL money has to change. It has to get more under control. They need to put a limit on it. But we'll see. We'll see. All right, moving on. NFL draft was this past weekend. Quick plug about the show that's coming up Thursday. I'll talk about it again at the end of this program. But we're going to cover the draft more, go more in depth on the recap of the draft in that show. Again, more about that at the end. But at least I do want to talk about the OU players that were drafted. Again, I told you this is about college sports, but we're going to lean towards OU. So I'm just going to kind of go over the OU draft picks real quick, you know, hit on them real quick and then move on. First Sooner that was drafted was R. Mason Thomas by the Kansas City Chiefs. I think that's great for R. Mason. You know, everybody knows what the Chiefs have done the last several years. I'm going to say unfortunately because I'm not a Chiefs fan. I'm a Cowboys fan. But, hey, that's awesome for him. He deserves it. He went in the second round again to the Chiefs. Second Sooner taken was Fabechi Wewu. Great story, offensive lineman. Again, I'll talk more about his story on Thursday. He went to the fourth round to the Houston Texans. Third Sooner pick, Grayson Halton. He went in the 4th round to the 49ers. I think he's going to do some big things in San Francisco. Next was Kendall Daniels, 4th round to the Atlanta Falcons. Man, what a transfer pickup for the Sooners. That was he had a great 2025. Again, I'll talk more about him tomorrow. Next player selected, Robert Spears Jennings. He went in the 7th round to the Pittsburgh Steelers. You know, you get in the 7th round, you got to do some work. You know, I think he'll be able to do that some in the special teams. And, you know, they have a couple of pretty good safeties at Pittsburgh. So, you know, we'll see where that goes. Next player, great story. I think it's the best story on the Sooner team this last year, Jaron Kanek. He goes in the 7th round to the Tennessee Titans. Converted linebacker, plays tight end 1 year, and it turns into a draft pick for him. So awesome for him. Probably the biggest surprise to me was Deion Burks. Not surprised he got drafted, surprised he got drafted so late. He went 7th round to the Colts. You know, I get more into that later, but I'm shocked that he did not go sooner than that. That's a big surprise to me. Like I said, I'm not going to break down the whole draft. That's coming on Thursday. I did want to go over the OU picks, talk more about those on Thursday. And, you know, 7 players drafted for the Sooners continues to show the type of talent that's coming out of OU right now. You know, you get 7 players drafted, and a couple more went signed as undrafted free agents. You know, you got a pretty solid program when that happens. You know, you see players, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 players drafted out of one program. That's you got a pretty good program going. That's what you're aiming for every year, to get a lot of guys drafted. That sends a big message about your program. One final thing before I move on the draft, the mystery of Jaden Ott continues. Sooner fans, you know what I'm talking about. Barely played at OU, played some in the first couple of games of the season. You know, word was him and DeMarco Murray, who was the running backs coach at OU, didn't see eye to eye on some things. There was a conflict there. For whatever reason, it was one of the weirdest situations I've seen since I've been an OU fan all my life, but this was out there. It was odd. DeMarco leaves, takes the running backs. He's now the running back coach at Kansas City for the Chiefs, where R. Mason Thomas is going. And guess where Jaden Ott signed as an undrafted free agent? With the Kansas City Chiefs. Crazy. I know that's in the past, moving on from that, but to me, that's just a crazy story, and one we may never know the whole truth about. And speaking of the Chiefs, R. Mason went there. R. Mason Thomas went to the Chiefs. Pretty good pipeline going from Norman to Kansas City these days. OU has the type of player that the Chiefs like, and that's a good thing. That's a good place to be. Hollywood Brown is there now. Of course, Creed Humphrey is there now. Orlando Brown was there. Just every year it seems like they get another OU player, which is pretty awesome. Okay, while we're on OU, let's talk about OU. Look at the week that just passed. OU softball, rough weekend in Auburn, lost 2 out of 3. Did defeat ORU midweek last week. Ended with a thud yesterday on the Plains. They got run ruled 14-4. Lost 2 out of 3. Struggling to stay consistent right now. Swept Missouri a week ago, then defeated ORU. We're definitely in game 1. Had a big win on Saturday, which turns out that was a really big win to avoid the sweep. Kyle Branch, this is kind of a hot take. Kyle Branch may be the best second baseman for sure in the SEC. Made 4 plays on Saturday that were unbelievable, including the play to end the game. Ball's hit up the middle, and he dives and from his knee whirls and throws to first. Just a great play. He's a great second baseman. Also, pretty clutch hitter a lot of times also. But overall, rough week for the Sooners. Midweek game against Texas Tech was scheduled for tomorrow night in Frisco. Just literally before I started recording was canceled. Inclement weather in the area, expected in the area tomorrow. So that game had been canceled. So they will host Florida this weekend. Right now, the Sooners are in a 4-way tie for 4th place in the SEC. Would be great to sneak into that 4th spot. They got some work to do, though. Got some things to fix. Pitching has struggled. Relief pitching has struggled. They've had good starts from L.J. Mercurius and Cam Johnson. Was a struggle yesterday for Cord Rager. Need to win this series in Florida, against Florida in Norman at Kimmery Family Stadium. There's 2 series left, at Arkansas, and then the last series of the year is against Tennessee at Bricktown Ballpark, which it's cool. If you can get tickets to go, I think the tickets are going pretty fast. So, but that'll be a big weekend. But anyway, so it was a rough weekend. 3 series left, counting against Florida this week at home. Need to get it right. Need to get the ship right in a hurry. OU softball, the beat goes on. They hit that little lull. They lost that last game to Texas, then lost to Oklahoma State. Won 2 out of 3 last week against Arkansas, as we talked about last week. Swept Georgia this week. Man, yesterday had to win and come from behind fashion. Friday night was a run rule game. So 3 big wins. Kendall Wells, I did a quick hit on her on Saturday. The girl is unbelievable. 36 home runs, 1 away from tying the NCAA record for most home runs in a season. The Sooners, as a team, have now set the NCAA record for most home runs in the season, and they just keep hitting. Heard Patty Gasso talking yesterday after the game. Yes, the home runs are a story. They should be a story, but she is most happy with the way they play defense. They throw the leather around. They can play some defense. Tough week ahead. No midweek this week. They play A&M this weekend. Last game of the last series of the regular season. We're already coming down to the end of the regular softball season. Right now they are sitting at 18-3. First, they lead Alabama by a half game. So a Sooner sweep over the Aggies in College Station will clinch an SEC regular season title and get the number 1 seed going to the SEC tournament. SEC tournament this year is at Lexington next on May 5th through the 9th. Obviously next week. So it's a big series this week. Hopefully they can go in. I think if they win 2 out of 3, they'll still win it. They'll still win the conference. Sweep would pretty much would clinch it. So both programs right now coming down to the end. Baseball team needs to get a little more consistency. They're still fine. They're still in good shape. Tied for 4th in the conference. Have a chance to right the ship. They have a couple more series. Like I said, 3 series left to improve where they are right now. Baseball just close it out this week, or I'm sorry, softball close it out this week, and go rolling into the SEC tournament. So Thursday coming up, let me talk about that. Longtime family friend, a guy named Grant Bergman, is going to join me on on Thursday. A show we're doing, Coach Curb Sports Report Off the Prairie with Bergie. He is very knowledgeable on sports. We're going to talk a lot more pro sports. As I said last week, he is in Oklahoma State. He's a graduate of Oklahoma State, was a pitcher on their baseball team. I'll talk more about that on Thursday. But he's going to get on and we'll do an Oklahoma State segment. We'll probably get into some OU stuff. We'll probably get some banner going back and forth, OU, OSU. In fact, I hope we do. That'll be fun. But Grant's awesome. He's very knowledgeable, and we're going to have some fun with that show on Thursday. But we'll break down the draft. We're going to talk about NBA playoffs, touch on Major League Baseball. He is a big Toronto Blue Jays fan, Buffalo Bills fan, and an Oklahoma City Thunder fan. And I'm a Maverick fan, so I can't really say much right now because the Thunder have it rolling. But anyway, bro, that's Thursday's show ahead. And again, we'll kind of do a recap of the draft. Break down what teams got right, who didn't get it right, and we'll also have some bold predictions, for the following week. So that's going to be a fun show. Looking forward to that. Well, that's episode 2. Again, this one's a little shorter. They're going to get longer as we go. As we get into the summer, we'll start previewing the college football season. Thursday's show, we'll preview the pro football season. So, hope you guys keep turning in. It's been fun so far. Again, I appreciate all of the love you're giving me on the clips. Keep commenting, subscribe here on YouTube. Follow me on Facebook. Looking forward to it. Leave comments, leave questions. I'll check them and I'll answer them. I would love to eventually, and I've talked about this, do a live where we can do live questions. So, we're going to keep rolling with this, and we're going to have fun with it. So that's episode 2. This is Coach Curb, and that's the Sports Report.